G'day everyone and welcome to episode number 92 of the Ohaza's Japan channel. I'm John, an Australian guy who's been living here for about 13 years now, and I talk about daily life and life as an Australian here in the land of the rising sun. Work, travel, food, all that kind of stuff and more. I also introduce something called Word of the Day at the end of each episode. That's where I introduce a Japanese word that's based on something we've covered during the show. All right, well, let's get right into it. Today, I'm at this place called Ishigakiyama Ichiya, which means the one-night castle of Ishigakiyama. And there's a reason why it's called the one-night castle. By the way, you might be wondering why there are no castles here, even though it's called the one-night castle. Well, it was abandoned after its purpose was fulfilled and it became ruins, and it's currently maintained as a National Historic Site of Japan. But there's a lot of significance here. Back in 1590, Toyotomi Hideyoshi came here, and over about 80 days, him and his guys built a massive castle. Now the area, as you can see, is surrounded by trees. It's on top of a mountain, and I'll quickly go back to that area there. You can actually see Odawara Castle down below. So this is in a position that's elevated and overlooking Odawara Castle. So the guys over there, I mean, these guys were at war, and Hideyoshi had a reputation. He was a very powerful guy with a powerful army, and these guys were already scared of him, you know, and I'll quickly see if I can show you guys. See down there? I'll see if I can point it out here on the screen. It's probably a bit small with this camera, but down there somewhere where my finger is, there's Odawara Castle. So what he did was he built this place in 80 days, and it was surrounded by trees, so you couldn't see it from down there, right? So the guys in Odawara were kind of chill and relaxed, and they were like, you know, this Toyotomi's not going to do anything, you know, he can't penetrate our castle. So they were kind of chilling out. And one night when this castle here was finished, he ordered his guys to cut all the trees that were hiding this place from view. And what happened? The next morning, the guys down there at Odawara Castle, they wake up and they see this massive brand new castle on the hill. And they freaked out. It totally crushed their spirits. Imagine being scared of someone, you know, a strong enemy. And then you're probably hearing rumors at the same time. And then one day in the morning, you wake up. Imagine you're on morning duty. You wake up and you're looking, you know, around the landscape, and you see this massive new structure on the hill in the distance. I would freak out. Anyone would freak out. And so 9 days after that, they surrendered, because I think that, coupled with a couple of other factors, probably made them realize that they weren't going to win this thing. So they surrendered. And so that's the story of the one-night castle. Now, present day, it's a very well-maintained site, because after that was over, the castle was abandoned and it fell to ruins, and you've only got a few remnants remaining today. You can see some of the wall, and there are some stones and things, and it's a National Historic Site of Japan. Geez, we're very lucky now. It's the sun's come out. Only moments ago, there was fog sweeping across this whole area. So we're quite lucky, and it's great to see the sun again. So that's the story of Ichiya Castle. Next up, I'm going to be talking about international driving permits and a story that came up last week, I think it was, in the paper, and it was about how tourists were able to convert their licenses into Japanese local licenses. And I thought, what the hell? Because when I came here, I had to convert my license, as in do all the paperwork and the proper procedures, whereas these people are getting local licenses just by showing their own versions of their licenses back home and using temporary addresses, like addresses at hotels and things like that, which is, you know, you're just asking for trouble. It's a massive open loophole, an invitation to fraud and all kinds of activity. So that caught my attention, and I looked into it, because I find that whenever there's something that I don't know too much about, I speak too soon. And I think a lot of us do that. But it's always worth looking into things, isn't it, before jumping to conclusions. So thanks to everyone who helped out with that. A lot of helpful accounts on X actually gave me links to a couple of articles that really helped me understand the situation. So for most of us, we just get an international driving permit and we can just drive around wherever we want to. We can go to different countries around the world, and in most countries that international driving permit is actually recognized, and we can freely rent cars and drive around. That thing's usually valid for about a year. And, you know, that's a really easy thing to do. So I was really puzzled. But it turns out that not every country issues these things. So say, for example, you're from China, or Brazil, I think it was the other country. They don't actually issue international driving permits, also known as IDPs. And so these people, up until now, were coming to Japan, showing their domestic or their own licenses from back home, and then, you know, passing, I think the article said they had to pass some kind of a written quiz, but apparently it's so easy that anyone can pass it. So you had these people driving around Japan with very little knowledge of Japanese traffic rules, and, you know, obviously that leads to more accidents and more dangerous driving. And because their addresses were usually hotel addresses or other temporary places, whenever there was a problem, police had trouble tracking them down. So it's a massive problem for the whole country and for everyone here who's trying to do the right thing. And so the system's apparently going to change, which I'm happy to hear about. What happens to people who were using that system, who want to come to Japan as a tourist and drive? That part I don't know. None of the links that I could see had any information about what they were going to do for these people. I imagine for the time being they're not going to be able to drive because there's no way for them to get a license that's valid in Japan. So it's going to be interesting to see that one. We'll be following it, and if there's any updates I'll probably bring it up in a future episode. But that's that about the driving licenses. Next up, it's just going to be a short episode today, by the way. Next up I wanted to talk about the weather, which, as you can see, changes a lot. Like over there, grey skies, but up there, blue, and it just keeps changing all the time, doesn't it? Over the last week, it's been really temperamental. So, yeah, we've got to, just a reminder that we've got to be very careful when we're driving around in the rain as well. I was on the road a couple of nights ago, and there was quite a large, it must have been a large accident. I didn't see it, but I was held up for about 1.5 hours. It was a standstill. We weren't moving at all, not an inch. So there must have been a big accident somewhere in Shizuoka, and we were stuck there. And so it just reminded me that, yeah, we've got to be very careful when it's raining in particular. But obviously we have to always be careful, but especially in the rain. Geez, the dragonflies are out today. And that leads me to the end of the episode, which is, it's time for word of the day. So today's word of the day is weather related. As I said, it's always something connected to one of the stories in the show. And today's word is a mouthful. I'll probably get it wrong as well. It's senjō kosuitai. Senjō is like a line shape or a line. Kosui is rainfall, and tai is the same kanji for obi, which is a belt. And so that one is, I don't even know the English for it because it's not something that came up when I was in Australia. I'm sure there's a meteorological term for it, but it's not something that comes up in regular speech or conversation, not when I was there anyway. And this is something you'll notice actually with Japanese and English, is that just because there's a word that you don't say a lot in English, it doesn't mean that it's not said often in Japanese, and vice versa. Sometimes we use really, sophisticated words in English, and so naturally we want to know how to say them so we can sound fancy and posh in Japanese. And you ask a Japanese friend, or you look around on the internet, or you look up dictionaries, and no one says that in Japanese. They just use like a simple term for it. Anyway, I'm kind of drifting off topic, but it's connected to language learning, which I'm a big fan of. Anyway, this actually is describing, this word is describing when there's a big band of rain that moves across the country or a region. You'll see it on a weather map. There'll be a massive line of, or a thin line of heavy rainfall. And when you scrub through the forecast, you can actually see the animation, and it will be moving across to the left or the right or up and down. And that band of rain is what this thing is. It's a belt of rain, and that's why it's called Senjo Kosuitai. And you'll hear that on the radio sometimes, or on the news channels when they're talking about the weather. And it's something that comes up quite often. It's not something like a fancy, difficult word or anything. I've heard it quite a bit. So hopefully you'll notice it more now that you've heard it. And it's something that, you know, that's how we learn language and how we learn words, isn't it? We'll learn something or hear about something, and then we start observing it, spotting it in the wild. And that's when it kind of locks in, it registers, and it starts to get embedded into your memory. Anyway, I'm going to finish up the episode here with this beautiful view. We've got much nicer weather now, so I'll leave you with that view as I say goodbye. And as always, thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you at the next episode. Bye for now.